The massive station hung in space like a silver crown. Captain Ji-hoon stood on the bridge of the Eternal Dawn, watching through the viewport as they approached. This was the Grand Nexus, the center of galactic power. After 200 years of dreaming about the stars, humanity had finally made it here. "All systems steady, Captain," Yuna said from her station. The young tactical officer checked her screens one more time. Everything looked perfect. Dr. Sora moved beside Ji-hoon, her eyes wide with excitement. 47 different alien species live here. Can you imagine? We're about to meet them all. Ji-hoon nodded slowly. He felt excited too, but something bothered him. During their journey, they had studied everything the aliens sent them. The records seemed incomplete, like pages torn from a history book. "Stay alert," he told his crew. "We don't know these people yet." Ambassador Minho waited in the shuttle bay, wearing his formal diplomatic uniform. He had spent months preparing for this moment. Earth's future depended on making a good impression. When the shuttle doors opened, he stepped out with confidence. The Grand Council chamber was enormous. Thousands of aliens filled the curved rows of seats. Some looked like giant insects. Others had scales and reptilian features. Some were so strange that Minho couldn't even describe them properly. All of them stared at the humans with curious eyes. High Arbiter Theksoon sat on the highest platform. His blue skin glowed faintly under the lights. When he spoke, his voice boomed through the chamber. "Welcome, humans of Earth. You have requested membership in the Galactic Confluence. Present your case." Minho walked to the center platform. "Thank you, High Arbiter. Humanity comes in peace. We have much to offer the Confluence. Our scientists have developed unique technologies. Our people are hardworking and eager to contribute. We seek equal partnership among the stars." Silence filled the chamber for a moment. Then someone laughed. The sound started small but grew louder. Soon, hundreds of aliens were laughing. The sound echoed off the walls. A massive reptilian creature stood up. His scales were dark red, and his teeth showed when he spoke. "Equal partnership." Commander Gralix of the Varakish said, "Look at you. Soft skin, no armor. No claws. Weak bodies that break easily. You are prey animals, not partners." Another alien stood, its insect-like body clicking as it moved. "Your technology is primitive," the Qualath representative said. "You barely achieved faster-than-light travel. We mastered this 10,000 years ago. What could you possibly offer us?" More voices joined in. The aliens spoke over each other, listing all the ways humans were inferior. Too slow, too weak, too young, too simple. Minho stood quietly, letting them finish. He noticed that Captain Ji-hoon and Dr. Sora were listening from the visitors' gallery. Ji-hoon's face showed no emotion, but his eyes were sharp and focused. When the chamber finally grew quiet, High Arbiter Theksoon spoke again. "The Confluence has decided to be generous. We will not grant you membership, but we offer protection. Become clients of the Vrakish Empire. Give us 40% of your planet's resources. Accept expansion rights to only 3 star systems. In return, we will defend you from the dangers of space." "And if we refuse?" Minho asked calmly. Gralix showed his teeth in what might have been a smile. "Then you will learn those dangers very quickly, little human." Minho looked up at the gallery where his team waited. Ji-hoon gave a small nod. "We respectfully decline your offer," Minho said. "Humanity will chart its own course among the stars." The chamber erupted in surprised chatter. No species had ever refused the Confluence's protection before. High Arbiter Theksoon raised his hand for silence. "Very well. Humanity is granted 1 star system as territory. Expansion beyond it will be considered an act of war. You are dismissed." Back on the Eternal Dawn, the crew gathered in the briefing room. Ji-hoon looked at the faces around him. "They think we're weak," he said quietly. "Good. Let them think that." Dr. Sora pulled up data on her tablet. "I hacked into their databases during the meeting. Captain, I found something disturbing. Every species in the Confluence evolved on paradise worlds, planets with perfect weather, abundant food, and few predators. They never had to fight for survival. What about Earth? Yuna asked. Earth is classified as a death world in their system, Sora continued. Extreme weather, dangerous animals, limited resources. They can't understand how we survived there. They definitely don't understand what surviving there made us become. Minho poured himself a drink. They mentioned something during the private sessions. 5,000 years ago, something called the Devourers almost destroyed the galaxy. The Confluence survived by hiding, not fighting. They've never actually won a real war. Jihoon stood and walked to the viewport. Outside, the Grand Nexus sparkled with lights. Thousands of ships came and went, carrying the wealth of 47 civilizations. All of it protected by beings who had never known real danger. They're not warriors, he said. They're bullies. And bullies always learn the same lesson eventually. What lesson is that? Yuna asked. That there's always someone tougher, Jihoon replied. The Eternal Dawn left the Grand Nexus the next day. Earth received the report and began preparing. If the galaxy wanted to treat humanity like prey, then humanity would show them what prey could do when it evolved into a predator. 6 months passed quietly. Humanity established mining colonies in their assigned system. They built defenses and trained their people. The Confluence watched with mild interest, expecting the humans to eventually accept their place. Then the Varakish decided to teach the humans a lesson. Commander Gralax sent raiders to the human mining colonies. 20 warships jumped into the system, ready to take whatever they wanted. The miners would surrender or die. It would be simple. The transmission came 3 weeks later. The Varakish ships had gone silent. Search teams found them drifting in space, torn apart from the inside. Every Verkish warrior was dead. The ship's logs showed humans boarding through methods the Varakish had never seen before. Fighting in ways the Vergesh couldn't defend against. Moving through the ships like ghosts, killing with terrible efficiency. Only one message was recovered from the human forces. It was simple and direct. You were warned. The recording reached the Grand Nexus within days. High Arbiter Thexun watched it 3 times. Around him, the council members whispered in fear. Humanity had done something no confluent species could imagine. They had turned space combat into personal warfare. They had boarded enemy ships and fought hand-to-hand in zero gravity. Gralax demanded immediate retaliation. We will crush these humans, he roared. 200 ships. We will burn their planet and teach the galaxy what happens to those who defy the Varakish. Council approved. None of them understood what they had just started. None of them realized that humanity had spent thousands of years perfecting one skill above all others: the art of war. The war room deep beneath Earth's surface buzzed with activity. Admiral Tai Yang stood before a massive holographic display showing the incoming Varakish fleet. 200 warships, each one 3 times larger than humanity's biggest vessel. The aliens expected this to be a quick and brutal lesson. They'll be here in 6 hours, Murray said from her station. The intelligence officer had been tracking the fleet since it left for Quiche space. Standard formation. They're not even trying to hide. Why would they? Dr. Junho said, walking into the room with a tablet. They've never lost a battle. Every species they've fought surrendered before the first shot. They don't know what real combat looks like. Taiyang studied the formation carefully. His grandfather had been a general in Earth's last great war. The old man had taught him a simple truth. The bigger the army, the harder it falls when you cut off its head. Show me their command structure, he ordered. Murray pulled up new data. The flagship is in the center, protected by layers of other ships. Classic Verkish doctrine. They believe overwhelming force and defensive positions win battles. Oh, they're wrong, Taiyang said simply. Sergeant Hannah, are your teams ready? In another room, Sergeant Hannah checked her equipment one final time. She had spent the last 3 months training for this exact moment. Around her, 50 other soldiers did the same. They wore black armor covered in sensors and stealth technology. Each one carried weapons designed for fighting inside spaceships. Shadow Team Alpha, ready, she reported. All 25 teams confirm ready status. Hannah had fought in Earth's African conflicts before joining the Space Force. She understood something the aliens didn't. Real warfare wasn't about big ships firing at each other from safe distances. Real warfare was personal, close, brutal. It happened in dark corridors and tight spaces where training and instinct meant everything. "Remember your training?" she told her team. "These aliens have never fought hand-to-hand. They don't understand zero-gravity combat. They've never cleared a hostile ship room by room. Use that, move fast, stay silent, and show them why humans are apex predators." The Varekish fleet entered Earth's system right on schedule. Commander Gralax sat on his command throne, satisfied. The human planet hung in space ahead, blue and vulnerable. He would burn their cities first. Then he would take prisoners to show the galaxy what happened to species that refused Varekish protection. "Open a channel," he ordered. "Let them hear their doom." His communication officer tried, then tried again. "Commander, there's no response. The humans aren't broadcasting anything." Gralax frowned. Every other species had begged for mercy at this point. What were these humans doing? Scan for their fleet. The sensors officer worked quickly. "I detect approximately 50 small vessels scattered around their planet. They appear to be civilian transports. No military ships present? They abandoned their people?" Gralax couldn't believe it. Even prey animals usually tried to defend their young. "No matter. Begin the bombardment." That's when the lights went out, not just on one ship, on all of them. Every Varekish warship suddenly went dark. Emergency power failed. Backup systems didn't respond. 200 massive warships drifted helplessly in space, their crews trapped inside without power, weapons, or sensors. "What's happening?" Gralax roared. His command throne's emergency lighting flickered on, casting red shadows across the bridge. Around him, his officers worked frantically at dead controls. Inside Earth's command center, Murray smiled at her screens. All Varekish systems successfully hacked and shut down. The virus worked perfectly. It never secured their networks, Dr. Junho explained. "Why would they? No one ever tried to hack them before. We've had access to their systems for months, mapping every command structure, every power relay, every security protocol." They left the door wide open. Admiral Taeyang nodded. "Launch shadow teams. All 25. Rules of engagement are clear. Disable, not destroy. I want prisoners. I want survivors who can tell the story." In space, small pods launched from Earth. They moved silently, using minimal thrust to avoid detection. Each pod carried 5 shadow team soldiers. They approached the dead Varekish ships like sharks circling wounded prey. Sergeant Deknez's pod attached to the flagship's hull with barely a sound. Her team deployed magnetic clamps and began cutting through the outer armor. Inside, the Varekish would be confused, scared, trying to restore power. They wouldn't be watching their hull for physical intrusion. That kind of thinking belonged to species that understood real warfare. The cutting laser finished. Hannah pulled the section away and slipped inside. Her helmet's night vision turned the dark corridor green. Behind her, 4 more soldiers followed. They moved in practiced silence, weapons ready. The first Varekish appeared around a corner, carrying a light source. He never saw them. Hannah moved like water, closing the distance in seconds. Her combat knife found the gap in his armor. He fell without making a sound. "Target down," she whispered into her cum. Proceeding to engineering, across the fleet the same scene repeated. Human soldiers moved through alien ships like ghosts. The Varekish, evolved on a world without major predators, had never developed combat instincts. They moved in predictable patterns. They made noise. They carried lights that gave away their positions. They didn't understand that darkness was a weapon. But humans understood. Humans had spent millennia hunting in the dark, fighting in trenches, surviving in places where every shadow could hide death. This was what they were built for. Gralax heard the screams start, his warriors throughout the ship dying in the darkness. He grabbed a weapon and moved toward the bridge entrance. Whatever was killing his crew would have to come through here eventually. The door exploded inward, not from cutting tools or explosives, but from a device that overrode the manual locks. 5 dark figures poured through. Greylax fired his weapon, but they moved too fast, splitting up and using the bridge's equipment as cover. One of them appeared in front of him, female, small, compared to a Vrakish. She should have been easy to kill. She moved inside his reach before he could fire again, and suddenly he was on the ground, his weapon gone, pain shooting through his arm. Commander Growlix, Sergeant Hannah said in perfect Vrakish language, "Your flagship is secure. Your crew is restrained. 19 other ships are also captured. The rest of your fleet has 3 minutes to surrender, or we continue operations." Growlix tried to stand, but her boot pressed against his chest. The strength behind it shocked him. How could something so small be so strong? "You cannot win," he gasped. "The Confluence will send more fleets. Bigger fleets." Hannah leaned closer. "That's what we're counting on. Someone needs to tell them what happened here. Someone needs to explain to the galaxy what they started." She activated his ship's communication system, broadcast to all Vrakish vessels. Their commander surrendered. They have 1 minute to do the same. The Vrakish fleet broke. Ships that still had emergency power tried to run. Admiral Taiyang let them go. Out of 200 warships, 23 escaped. The rest were captured, their crews taken prisoner. Not a single human soldier died. Myray made sure the fleeing ships carried full sensor recordings of what happened. Let them show the galaxy. Let every species see what humanity could do. Let them understand that humans didn't fight like other species. Humans were predators wearing civilization like clothing. And when that civilization was threatened, the predators came out. 3 days later, the recordings reached the Grand Nexus. High Arbiter Thexun watched in horror as human soldiers demonstrated combat capabilities no confluent species possessed. They moved through zero gravity like they were born in it. They fought hand-to-hand with deadly efficiency. They used darkness, silence, and fear as weapons. The Qualath military analysts wrote reports that spread panic through the Confluence. Their conclusion was simple and terrifying. Humanity had evolved on a death world. They were apex predators who had learned to survive in conditions that would kill any confluent species. They had spent thousands of years fighting each other, perfecting warfare in ways the Confluence never imagined, and now humanity was loose among the stars. "We need to negotiate, High Counselor," Vrethis said, "before more die." But it was already too late. Earth's fleet had disappeared into space. Admiral Taiyang had given them new orders. The Confluence wanted war. Humanity would show them what war really meant. The Qualath Weapons Depot orbited a dead moon on the edge of Confluent space. It held enough firepower to arm 1,000 ships. Security was tight. Sensors covered every approach. Patrol ships swept the area constantly. The Qualath believed it was impossible to attack without being detected. Captain, Yunji proved them wrong. The Night Phantom drifted through space like a piece of debris. Its engines were cold. Its hull absorbed sensor waves instead of reflecting them. Inside, Yunji and her crew waited patiently. They had been drifting for 6 days, moving closer with each passing hour. "We're in position," her navigation officer whispered. In space, sound didn't matter, but old habits died hard. When you were hunting, you stayed quiet. Yunji checked her calculations one more time. The Queloth patrol ships followed predictable patterns. Every 12 hours, there was a gap. 15 minutes where the depot's blind spot wasn't covered. Humanity had learned to exploit gaps. The Confluence, which had never faced real enemies, didn't even know their gaps existed. Deploy insertion team. Silent approach. No active sensors. No communications until you're inside. 20 soldiers left the Night Phantom in suits designed to look like space debris. They drifted toward the depot, using tiny bursts of air instead of rocket thrust. The Quelath sensors saw them as fragments from an old collision. Nothing worth investigating, the soldiers attached to the depots, HULL, and began cutting. Quietly, carefully, Inside, automated systems monitored the base. But those systems were designed to detect ships, not individual soldiers. Humans had found another gap to exploit. Back on Earth, Director Sung-ho monitored operations from the Intelligence Center. Screens showed him 20 different missions happening across confluent space. Small human teams, striking at carefully chosen targets. Supply depots. Communication stations. Isolated military outposts. Nothing big enough to bring the full Confluence military down on them. Just enough to cause chaos. Operation Nightfall is proceeding as planned, he told Admiral Taiyang through a secure channel. The Confluence can't find our ships. They can't predict our targets, and every attack makes them more paranoid. Taiyang studied reports from across the galaxy. 12 Confluence species were demanding action. 8 wanted immediate peace talks. 3 had withdrawn their military forces to protect their own territories. The unity that had held the Confluence together for 10,000 years was cracking. What about the psychological operations? He asked. Dong-Yun stepped forward. The psychological warfare specialist had spent months studying how the Confluence species thought. Were broadcasting intercepted communications across their networks. Communications where their leaders discuss acceptable civilian casualties. Where they dismiss smaller species as expendable. True communications, but edited to sound worse than they are. That's manipulation, someone said. That's warfare, Dong-Yun replied coldly. The Confluence built their civilization on intimidation and lies. We're just showing people the truth in ways they can't ignore. Already, 7 species have accused each other of betrayal. The Verkesh blame the Qualath for weak security. The Qualath blame the smaller species for not fighting hard enough. They're destroying themselves. Taiyang nodded slowly. War isn't just about killing. It's about breaking your enemy's will to fight. Make them doubt themselves. Make them doubt each other. Make them question everything. That's how you win without destroying planets. At the Qualath depot, Youngji's team had placed their charges. Small, precise explosives that would destroy the weapons without creating debris fields. They moved back to their insertion point, still silent, still invisible. The Qualath workers inside the depot never knew death had walked among them. The night, Phantom collected its team and drifted away. 3 hours later, the depot exploded. The blast was clean and total. 10 billion credits worth of weapons vanished in seconds. The Qualath sent investigators, but they found nothing. No evidence of how the attack happened. Just gaps in their sensor logs that shouldn't exist. The fear spread. If the Qualath masters of technology couldn't protect their weapons, what could anyone protect? Trade ships began traveling in convoys. Species stopped trusting each other with military intelligence. The economy built on 10,000 years of stable peace started to collapse. High Counselor Vrethus sat in her chambers on the Grand Nexus, reading reports that made her blood cold. In 3 months, humanity had struck 47 targets across confluent space. They had destroyed military assets worth trillions. They had captured 3 high-ranking officers who then revealed sensitive information under interrogation. And they had done it all without losing a single ship. Her door chimed. War Master Zinthax entered without waiting for permission. The massive insectoid warrior looked agitated. We must act decisively, he said. Every day we delay, we look weaker. The smaller species are beginning to question our leadership. What do you propose? Vrethus asked, though she feared she already knew. A final strike. We gather the largest fleet in Confluence history. Every species contributes ships. We jump to Earth's coordinates simultaneously. 30 times the force they faced before. Even humans cannot fight those numbers. Vrethus wanted to argue. She wanted to say that force wasn't working, that humanity was different, that they needed to negotiate. But War Master Zinthax spoke with the confidence of the Confluence's military establishment. The same establishment that had never lost a war because no one ever fought back. How many ships? She asked quietly. From 30 species. It will be the greatest show of force in galactic history. The humans will have no choice but to surrender, and if they don't, Zintax's mandibles clicked together in what might have been a smile. Then we will finally exterminate this threat and remind the galaxy why the confluence rules. Vrethis approved the plan. She told herself it was necessary, that humanity had forced this choice. That overwhelming force would save lives by ending the war quickly. Deep inside, she wondered if she was making the biggest mistake in Confluence history. The call went out. Every Confluence species was required to contribute ships. Some did so eagerly, wanting to crush the humans who had humiliated them. Others did so reluctantly, fearing what would happen if they refused. Within 2 weeks, 3,000 warships gathered at the designated coordinates. It was the largest military force ever assembled in the galaxy. Enough firepower to glass 100 planets? War Master Zintax stood on his command ship, watching the fleet form up. Victory was certain. How could it not be? Humans might be clever, might be fierce, but they couldn't fight mathematics. 3,000 ships against humanity's small fleet. The war would end today. On Earth, Myray detected the fleet massing. "Admiral, they're coming!" All of them. 3,000 confirmed vessels. Admiral Taiyang had been expecting this. The Confluence thought in terms of overwhelming force. They couldn't imagine any other way to fight. "Good," he said calmly. "The more they send, the bigger they fall." "Have we finished mapping their systems?" "Every ship," Myray confirmed. "We've had access to their networks for months. They still haven't figured out our backdoor access. Their security is designed to stop external attacks, not infiltrators who have been inside from the beginning." Perfect. Execute Phase 3 of Operation Nightfall. All shadow teams prepare for the largest boarding operation in history. And someone send a message to Captain Ji-hoon. Tell him it's time to bring the fleet home. Across human-controlled space, ships that had been hiding in the dark began moving. Not toward Earth to defend it, but to positions surrounding where the Confluence fleet would arrive. The Night Phantom and hundreds of vessels. Like it took up positions in the black spaces where sensors couldn't see them. "Sergeant." Hannah checked her equipment for the 100th time. Her shadow team had grown from 5 soldiers to 50. They would be boarding one of the largest ships in the Confluence fleet. "How are you feeling?" she asked her team. "Ready." They answered together. "Remember," she said, "they think numbers win wars. Let's show them that skill beats numbers every time." The Confluence fleet jumped into Earth's system. War Master Zintax immediately scanned for enemy vessels. He found 200 human ships orbiting the planet in defensive positions. He laughed. "They're going to try to defend." How quaint. All ships, attack formation. "Today we end this." Admiral Taiyang watched the Confluence fleet on his screens. 3,000 ships, all in neat formations, all confident of victory. He felt almost sorry for them. "Almost, Myray," he said quietly. "Kill their power." Myray pressed a single button. Across space, 3,000 Confluence warships went dark simultaneously. The virus that had been sleeping in their systems for months activated. Every ship, every system, every weapon. All of it died at once. In the sudden darkness and silence, War Master Zintax finally understood. They hadn't walked into a battle. They had walked into a trap, and the humans had been patient enough to spend months preparing it. Then he heard the cutting torches beginning their work on his hull. And he understood something else. The war wasn't over. It had just begun. And humanity was going to teach the Confluence what the word predator really meant. Colonel Jisoo moved through the dead corridors of the Confluence flagship. Around her, 500 shadow teams were doing the same across 3,000 ships. The largest boarding operation in human history. Every team knew their job. Get in. Secure key positions. Control the ship. Minimize casualties. Behind her, 4 soldiers followed in practiced formation. They had trained together for so long that words weren't necessary. Hand signals. Eye contact. Trust. The aliens didn't understand trust. They understood hierarchy and fear. That was their weakness. "Movement ahead," her point man whispered. His thermal sensors showed 3 confluence soldiers around the corner. Different species, judging by their heat signatures. 1 Verkish. 2 smaller ones, probably Keoloth. Jisoo signaled. Her team split, moving to different positions. When you hunted as a group, you surrounded your prey. Basic tactics. The confluence species never developed such tactics because they never needed to hunt. They were prey animals who gained weapons but never learned what. Predators knew in their bones. The Verkish came around the corner first, holding a light source. Jisoo's team took him down with tranquilizer darts. Quiet, efficient. The Keoloth heard him fall and tried to run. They made it 3 steps. More darts. All 3 aliens slept peacefully on the floor. Bridge is 200 meters ahead, Jisoo said into her comm. No major resistance. Proceeding as planned. Across the fleet, similar reports came in. The confluence crews, trapped in the dark without power, were helpless. Some tried to fight. Most surrendered when they realized resistance was pointless. The humans moved through their ships like ghosts, appearing from darkness. Taking control before anyone could react, Engineer Heinwu monitored the operation from the command ship. His electromagnetic warfare systems had worked perfectly. Every confluence vessel was completely shut down. No power, no weapons. No escape, Admiral. We have control of approximately 60% of the fleet. The rest will be secured within 2 hours. Admiral Taiyang nodded. This was going better than planned. Part of him had worried the confluence might have learned, might have adapted, but they hadn't. They still thought in terms of big ships and bigger guns. They didn't understand that modern warfare was about information, control, and psychological dominance. Colonel Jisoo, when you reach the command bridge, I want you to let 30 ships escape. Make sure they have full sensor recordings of everything that happened, sir. Jisoo sounded surprised. We could capture them all, Taiyang agreed. But this isn't about capturing ships. It's about sending a message. Those 30 ships will return to the confluence and show them exactly what happened here. They'll spread fear faster than any weapon we have, Jisoo understood. Warfare wasn't just about winning battles. It was about breaking your enemy's spirit. Understood, sir. I'll make sure they get away with the best recordings. On the confluence command ship, War Master Zinthak sat in the dark emergency lighting. Around him, his command crew worked frantically to restore power. Nothing worked. The backup systems were dead. The emergency protocols failed. Even the most basic functions refused to respond. How? He asked. His voice was small now, not the booming authority from before. How did they do this? His technical officer looked up with fear in his multiple eyes. They had access to our systems. For months, maybe longer. They studied everything. Every protocol, every security measure, every weakness. Then they built a virus specifically designed to attack all of it simultaneously. Sir, they didn't just hack us. They understood us better than we understand ourselves. The door to the bridge exploded inward. Zinthak grabbed for a weapon that wasn't there. 5 humans in black armor entered, moving with the confidence of apex predators in their own territory. The lead one, a female with colonel insignia, walked straight to him. War Master Zinthak, Colonel Jisoo said, your fleet is under human control. Your war is over.
Oh.
We should out.
Tried to maintain dignity, but his legs shook. He had never felt fear like this before. Real fear. The kind that came from being completely helpless. The confluence will never surrender to prey animals. Aju smiled. It wasn't a nice smile. We're not prey, War Master. That's what you never understood. Humans are predators. We evolved by hunting things bigger and stronger than us. We survived ice ages and plagues and wars that lasted generations. We didn't become the dominant species on Earth by being prey. We became dominant by being better hunters than anything else. She gestured to her soldiers, who began securing the bridge. You're going to watch what happens next. Then you're going to go home and tell your confluence exactly what they started. Over the next 2 hours, the Battle of Earth became a demonstration. Human forces methodically captured ship after ship. The confluence crews, trained for ship-to-ship combat, had no idea how to fight soldiers moving through their corridors. Most surrendered quickly. Some tried to fight and learned why humans trained for close combat. Admiral Wool Taiyang watched the operation with satisfaction. 0 human casualties so far. Minimal confluence casualties? This was how you won wars in the modern age. Not by destroying everything, but by proving your enemy couldn't win. Let the 30 ships go, he ordered. Make sure they're ships from different species. I want the whole confluence to hear this story from multiple sources. 30 ships suddenly had their power restored. They jumped to faster than light speed immediately, running home with recordings of everything they had witnessed. The humiliation, the helplessness, the ease with which humans had defeated the greatest military force in galactic history. Dr. Desira analyzed the prisoners as they were processed. She noticed something interesting. Many of them showed symptoms of severe psychological trauma, not from physical injury, but from the experience of being hunted. Their species had never developed instincts for this kind of fear. Admiral, she reported, the psychological impact on the confluent species is significant. They evolved without major predators. Their brains aren't wired to handle being prey. This one battle might have broken their military culture permanently. Good, Taiyang said without sympathy. They started this war by offering us slavery. They continued it by attacking our colonies. Now they learn what happens when you mistake human mercy for weakness. News of the battle reached the Grand Nexus within days. High Counselor Vethis watched the recordings in her chambers. 3,000 ships. The greatest fleet ever assembled. Defeated without humanity, firing a single shot. Captured by soldiers moving through corridors. Fighting in ways confluent species couldn't understand. The political collapse was immediate. 15 species withdrew from the military coalition. 8 species demanded High Arbiter Thexan's resignation. The Verakish military, humiliated twice now, faced internal rebellions. The Quilath, pragmatic as always, announced they would seek immediate negotiations with humanity. Brethis knew what she had to do. The confluence as it existed was finished. 10,000 years of peace through intimidation had ended. Humanity had shown that intimidation without the ability to back it up was worthless. She sent a message to Earth. Unconditional talks. No preconditions. Humanity would set the terms. Ambassador Minho received the message with satisfaction. Schedule the talks for next week. We'll meet at neutral ground. And make sure they understand we're not interested in their protection anymore. We're going to be equals, or there won't be peace. Dr. Sora was examining ancient confluence records when she found it. Hidden in encrypted files that the confluence had tried to delete, information about the Devourers from 5,000 years ago. She read through it twice, then 3 times before she believed what she was seeing. Captain Jihoon, she called over the comm. You need to see this immediately. Jihoon arrived at her lab within minutes. What did you find? Sora pulled up the ancient records. The Devourers weren't conquerors. They were refugees. A species fleeing from something. The confluence didn't fight them. They made a deal. The Devourers would fight the real threat, while the confluence hid. Then, when it was over, the Devourers were gone, and the confluence took credit for the victory. What were the Devourers running from? Jihoon asked. Sora pulled up the final file. It was mostly corrupted, but some information remained. Something the confluence called the Kurthrak. A species that consumes entire worlds. The records say they were defeated 5,000 years ago, but she pointed to a line of text. This suggests they weren't destroyed. They just left. Like they were satisfied or full or done with this galaxy. Are you saying they might come back? Before Sora could answer, alarms blared throughout the ship. Yuna's voice came over the emergency channel. Captain, we're getting reports from our long-range sensors. Multiple contacts entering the galaxy from deep space. Unknown configuration. Unknown technology. They're moving fast and heading toward confluence space. Ji-hoon and Sora reached the bridge at a run. The display showed dozens of massive signatures approaching. Ships larger than anything humanity or the confluence had ever built. Ships that moved with purpose and coordination that suggested hive intelligence. How many? Ji-hoon asked. Yuna checked her screens. Still counting. At least 500 detected so far. And they're accelerating. Whatever they are, they're headed straight for the most populated areas of the galaxy. The Quiloth colony world of Turthos died in 17 minutes. The Kurthrak bioships descended from orbit like locusts. They landed in the cities, in the farmlands, in the oceans. Everywhere they touched, life ended. Not burned. Not destroyed, consumed. The Kurthrak absorbed every living thing, converting it into more bioships, more soldiers. More hunger. By the time the Confluence response fleet arrived, nothing remained but empty buildings and stripped earth. 3 billion Quiloth, gone, turned into fuel for the swarm. High Counselor Vrithis watched the recordings and felt her species' ancient fear return. The fear that had made them hide 5,000 years ago. The fear they had never truly overcome. How long before they reached the core worlds? She asked. 2 weeks, her military advisor said quietly. They're moving faster than anything we've seen, and every world they consume makes them stronger. Vrethis made a decision that would have been unthinkable a month ago. She opened a direct channel to Earth. When Admiral Taiyang appeared on the screen, she bowed her head. The gesture of submission from a Confluence leader would have been shocking weeks ago. Now, it was simply necessary. Admiral Taiyang, she said. The Galactic Confluence formally requests human assistance. We are facing extinction. Our military cannot stop the Kurthrak. We offer full command of all Confluence forces to humanity. Whatever you need, whatever terms you demand, we accept. Please help us. Taiyang looked at her for a long moment. He could have refused, could have left the Confluence to its fate. But that wasn't who humanity was. We'll help, he said. But understand this, after this is over, the galaxy will never be the same. No more hierarchies. No more client species. Everyone will be equals, or there will be no peace. Agreed? Agreed, Vrithis said immediately. Then prepare your forces. I'm coming to the Grand Nexus. We have a war to plan. Captain Ji-hoon now commanded the largest fleet ever assembled. Not just human ships, but vessels from 47 different species. All of them looking to humanity for leadership. It was strange. 3 months ago, these same aliens had mocked humans as weak. Now they followed human orders without question. Captain Yuna brought him the latest intelligence reports. The Kurthrak have taken 4 more worlds. Always the same pattern. They land, consume everything, move on. Our analysts have been studying their behavior, and Ji-hoon asked. They operate as a hive mind. Millions of individual organisms sharing one consciousness. They're incredibly efficient, but that efficiency is also predictable. They take the most direct route to the most populated areas. They don't use strategy because they've never needed to. They just overwhelm. Ji-hoon smiled. So they're like the Confluence was. Strong but predictable. Good. Predictable enemies can be beaten. Director Sung-ho and Dr. Sora had been analyzing the ancient records nonstop. They finally found what they were looking for. The Devourers didn't destroy the Kurthrak, Sora explained. They couldn't. But they found the Kurthrak's weakness. The hive mind depends on coordination nodes. Large organisms that manage the swarm. Kill enough of those, and the whole system starts breaking down. How did the Devourers fight them? Taiyang asked. Seung pulled up tactical data. Guerrilla warfare. Small teams targeting coordination nodes. Avoiding the main swarm and hitting the brain instead. It took them years, but they slowly weakened the Kurthrak until the swarm decided this galaxy wasn't worth the effort and left.
Years.
Someone said, "We have weeks." If something the Devourers didn't, Taiyang replied, "We have technology, and we have a whole galaxy of resources. Most importantly, we have thousands of years of experience fighting impossible odds and winning." The plan came together quickly. The Confluence fleet would engage the Kurthrak directly, drawing their attention. Meanwhile, human shadow teams would infiltrate the swarm and target coordination nodes. It was risky, insane even, but it was humanity's specialty. Sergeant Hannah volunteered immediately for the infiltration teams. "We've been training to fight in hostile environments our whole lives," she told Admiral Taiyang. "This is just another hostile environment. It's a living swarm that eats everything it touches," he pointed out. She grinned. "Like I said, hostile environment." 200 shadow teams prepared for insertion. They wore new armor designed by combining human and Quilloth technology, stealth systems to avoid detection, sealed suits to protect from the Kurthrak's consuming touch, weapons designed to punch through bioarmor. Each team knew they might not come back. They went anyway. The battle began at the Nexus system. The Kurthrak swarm arrived with 500 massive bioships, each one carrying millions of smaller organisms. The Confluence fleet, now under human tactical control, waited for them. All ships, Captain Yuna broadcast from her flagship, the Apex Predator. "Remember your training. This isn't about standing and fighting. It's about movement, adaptation, and staying alive long enough for the infiltration teams to do their job. Fight smart, not hard." Kurthrak attacked with overwhelming force. But the Confluence ships, following human doctrine, didn't stand and trade fire. They moved, scattered, reformed in new positions, used three-dimensional thinking that the Kurthrak's linear approach couldn't handle. It was like watching wolves fight a bear. The bear was stronger, but the wolves were smarter. While the fleet fought, shadow teams launched. Hannah's pod attached to a Kurthrak bioship and began cutting through. The outer shell was thick, organic, and constantly regenerating. The cutting took twice as long as normal. "We're in," she reported. Inside, the bioship was like nothing she had seen before. Corridors made of living tissue, organic systems pulsing with alien life. The whole ship was one organism, and they were inside it like parasites. "Find the coordination node," Ji-hoon ordered from orbit. "Thermal scans suggest it's in the central core." Hannah's team moved through the living corridors. The Kurthrak organisms inside the ship sensed them and attacked. Not with weapons, but with claws and teeth in sheer numbers. The team's weapons made wet sounds as they cut through biomass. It was like fighting inside a body, because that's exactly what they were doing. "This is disgusting," one of her soldiers said. "Stay focused," Hannah replied. "Remember what they did to Turthos? 3 billion lives. Keep moving." They reached the central chamber. The coordination node was massive, a pulsing brain-like structure connected to the entire ship. Hannah placed charges around it carefully. "All teams, report status." Reports came in. 173 teams had successfully reached their coordination nodes. 27 teams were lost. The price was high, but the mission was working. "Detonate on my mark," Admiral Taiyang ordered. 3, 2, 1. Mark. 173 explosions ripped through the Kurthrak fleet simultaneously. The coordination nodes died, and with them, the hive mind's control over those sections of the swarm. Ships went dead. Organisms stopped moving. The swarm's beautiful, terrible efficiency collapsed into chaos. Why? UNA pressed the attack. "All Confluence vessels. Target the disabled ships. Destroy them completely. Don't let them regenerate." The battle that should have been a disaster turned into a victory. The Kurthrak swarm, without its coordination, couldn't adapt, couldn't respond. Individual organisms fought on, but the hive intelligence was broken. One by one, the bioships fell. Over the next 3 months, humanity taught the galaxy how to fight. Not through overwhelming force, but through intelligence, adaptation, and willingness to do what was necessary. Shadow teams struck at Kurthrak coordination nodes across dozens of systems. Confluence ships, following human tactics, learned to fight smart instead of just fighting hard. The cost was terrible. 40,000 human soldiers died. Hundreds of thousands of Confluence personnel. 12 worlds were consumed before they could be saved. But the Kurthrak, for the first time in their existence, faced an enemy that wouldn't surrender and couldn't be overwhelmed. The turning point came at the Crixus system. The largest Kurthrak swarm yet, led by a massive capital organism, attacked a heavily populated world. Fleet Admiral Jihoon took personal command of the defense. He had Yuna ships draw the swarm into a debris field where their numbers were useless. Then he sent every shadow team they had at the capital organism. Sergeant Hannah led the final assault personally. The capital organism was miles long, a living command center for the entire swarm. Getting inside meant fighting through layers of defenders. But her team had been doing this for months now. They knew the Kurthrak's patterns, knew their weaknesses, knew exactly where to strike. The capital organism died, and with it, the swarm's coordination collapsed completely. The remaining Kurthrak organisms scattered, reverting to basic survival instincts. They were still dangerous, but no longer an organized threat. The Confluence fleet hunted them down over the following weeks. The war ended not with a bang, but with a simple observation. The Kurthrak swarms stopped coming. Intelligence suggested they had decided this galaxy was too costly to consume. Just like 5,000 years ago, they moved on to easier prey. 1 year after humanity's first contact with the Galactic Confluence, Ambassador Minho stood in the council chamber again. But this time the council stood when he entered. High Counselor Verithus, now the permanent leader of what they called the Galactic Coalition, addressed him formally.